Hello my friends, it's my first video from the retreat center. I've arrived a few hours ago together with the rest of the group. We've traveled with 16 people. There were still a few people here from last week's retreat who are also extending their stay or doing a longer retreat. Like myself, I'll be here in total for 2 weeks. So in total, we're here now with about 25. We've spent the first half of the afternoon getting familiar with this absolutely stunning center and site. So I'll show you a little bit of it right now. It's even got a swimming pool right down there. They've got a gym, so it makes me very happy. It's absolutely stunning. It exceeded my expectations thus far. The second half of the afternoon we've gone over the program for the coming week, and right now we're about to dedicate some time to intention setting for the first ayahuasca ceremony tomorrow evening. I look forward to getting a good night's sleep surrounded by all these jungle sounds. I've already been able to see some monkeys basically climbing in the trees all around here, and I love all these sounds that I'm hearing, so I can't wait for a good night's rest, and I'm planning to record another video tomorrow. Good morning friends, day 2 of my ayahuasca retreat. I had a reasonable night. I didn't sleep fantastic, but also not too bad. I just woke up numerous times throughout the night, maybe because of all the new jungle sounds or the unfamiliar bed. I feel ready though for tonight's first ayahuasca ceremony. Tonight's ceremony marks ceremony number 1 out of a total of 8 scheduled ceremonies for me during the next 2 weeks. Today is all about preparing for it. So this morning we've done a cleansing ceremony with a medicine called rapé. Later on we're going to do a floral bath, followed by some quiet time and a informational talk sharing the practicality of tonight's ceremony. And then the ceremony is scheduled to commence at 8 p.m. and expected to finish anytime between 1 and 4 a.m. In lead up to this retreat, I have also followed the ayahuasca dieta to the best of my ability, which is a recommended and encouraged diet that you are recommended to follow in order to cleanse the body as well as the soul as much as possible. Because it is said that it's optimizing the experience of working with ayahuasca. One of the things that is important, or that I've noticed and that I believe in, is the cleaner you get into it, the more you're going to minimize the amount of purging. Basically, purging can be a way of ayahuasca trying to clean your body. It can be very unpleasant, so in order to minimize that, it is beneficial to go into it as clean as possible. But also, if you go into it as prepared as possible, like mentally, you're likely going to get the best possible experience out of it. So I feel excited more than anything. The first time I did this was 5 years ago, and at the time I was actually really scared and very nervous. That was because I was unfamiliar with psychedelics or anything, in fact any substance that would make me lose control. The only thing I had experience with until that point in my life was alcohol. I've been severely drunk a few times growing up in my teenage years, and that actually felt very, very scary. And after that I witnessed also people losing their lives and overdosing on drugs, for example, at music festivals. As a result, I had developed this strong fear against substances of which you can't control the outcome of after you've taken them. However, I had also met some people along the way working in the music industry, especially artists, as well as fellow colleagues that had worked with ayahuasca before, that had shared with me that it was very different and that you don't necessarily lose full control. In fact, one friend in particular shared with me about his experience where during the ceremony he was still fully present, was able to stand up, go to the toilet, come back, and that actually made me feel a lot more comfortable of working with the medicine. And in 2019, it was my girlfriend at the time who came up with the initiative to partake in the ceremony, and it came at the perfect time for me, because just a few weeks earlier my life got completely flipped on its head after I had found out together with my team that we weren't able to organize another edition of the Defqon 1 Music Festival in Australia. And ultimately that also ended up meaning the end of the Q-Dance organization, which I had been co-building and co-leading with the team for well over a decade. In fact, until that point, it had taken up most of my life. So when that all unexpectedly fell away, I felt very lost and very unsettled and uncomfortable. I didn't know what else I could do or wanted to do with my life. So when my girlfriend at the time mentioned ayahuasca and told me that one of her friends was facilitating a ceremony a few weeks later in San Diego, I was like, yep, sounds like the perfect time. However, I still was very nervous and scared as it was unfamiliar territory. And as a result, I feel actually took a long time as well for me to get an experience. In fact, I ended up drinking 4 cups of ayahuasca at the time. So only after about 5 or 6 hours, I actually started experiencing noticeable, well, I call them results. But when I talk about results, I mean like I got insights, I started purging, I started having some visualizations, realizations that came up for me, and they ended up changing my life forever. It ended up giving me a path or a direction on what I wanted to do with my life moving forward. It also made me let go of certain stories that I carry with me from my early years as a teenager that were actually holding me back socially. It also helped me to improve my relationship with women, for example. I will talk more and share more about this in my book that I'm currently writing and wishing to finish in 2025 called Chasing Happiness. But that experience planted the seed for me to do it again. At the time, just merely a couple of weeks after, I started feeling the desire and calling to do it again at some point in my life, as I felt at the time I was actually quite scared of it, and therefore maybe I was still having quite a few barriers up that were possibly preventing the ayahuasca to work to the best of its capability. And already at the time I had these visions like, if I'm going to do it again, I want to do it where the plant actually comes from, which is right here in the Amazon rainforest in Peru. And then 2 years ago, as my dad got diagnosed with his disease, when he got diagnosed with cancer, one of my first thoughts was, this is probably a good time to do an ayahuasca ceremony as he's going through his process of gradually letting go of his life, as we knew at the time, or we suspected that the chance was very likely that he was likely not gonna win the battle. So I thought it would help me get an insight in getting complete with letting go of him throughout the way. It would help me with that process. Ultimately, I didn't end up doing the retreat throughout that process. And after he passed, I basically thought to myself, well, now it's likely going to help me in the process of grieving. So that is one of my main intentions that I've brought with me here into this retreat. Because when you partake in an ayahuasca retreat, it is recommended to have some certain intentions. So you're going to get the best possible experience out of it. So basically it's recommended to ask ayahuasca or tell ayahuasca what you are wishing for after it. And then the chances can be pretty likely you're going to get exactly what you want. However, more so than anything, many people who work with ayahuasca and have worked with ayahuasca will also say that ayahuasca often gives you what you need and not all the time necessarily what you want. That was also my experience the first time. Now, gratefully, the first time I did feel it gave me what I wanted, but especially it gave me what I needed on top of it. So my main intention for this retreat is to just have an open mind. I'm very open to receive whatever I need at this point in my life to move forward the best possible way. So I trust the medicine. I feel more comfortable with it. It is my second ayahuasca retreat. I have started this entire journey of going on retreat in 2017 after I felt severely lost in life, actually in search for happiness, and gratefully, thanks to one of my good friends at the time, she helped me to partake in my first 5-day-long retreat, during which I finally addressed some of my childhood, well, I can call them traumas now, but mainly like unpleasant experiences that had started to affect me moving forward in my life in a negative way, because I always ended up trying to compensate for the self-inflicted stories that I was unknowingly telling myself ever since. And what I've noticed every time I go on retreat every year, because I do this almost every year, I always come out of it feeling more peaceful, feeling more happy, feeling a better person to myself, but also a better person for that matter for other people. That's why I'm committed to this work pretty much every year. and I look forward to tonight's experience. I'm gonna provide you a tour around the site here. Right after this, I'll show you some of the beautiful spaces, and then I'm gonna prepare for tonight's ceremony, and I will check in with you again tomorrow.
Ayahuasca, medicina curandera.
Hello again. It is Tuesday afternoon. I just had my second floral bath in preparation for ayahuasca ceremony number 2, which is happening tonight. In case you're wondering, how was ceremony number 1? that's why I'm here to share that with you. For me, after I drank the first cup, I had some strong visuals of my uncle, Yvonne, as well as my dad. And the message that came in very strongly was that they'd lost their lives both way too soon. And what both men had in common was, in my experience and from what I've heard in relation to my uncle, was that they weren't able to safely, freely express their sense and experience of sadness and pain without being judged by others. And I felt that really strongly. In that moment, I felt the importance for me moving forward to embody their voices and also the voices of many other men in this world who are unable to express themselves freely without being judged. So that was the first thing that came up for me very strongly. And after that, I had a sense of peace, calmness, and I felt physically very comfortable. As we were offered our second cup or second dose of ayahuasca, I decided to go for it. As soon as I did, I could already feel a slight discomfort physically, starting to feel a little bit sick in my stomach. I started sweating very intensively, and not long after I heavily purged. And as I purged, I could taste the food that I've been eating that day, but I could very intensely taste specific things in the food, onion, garlic. And I shared today with the staff here at the center that for the first 2 days here I was actually quite frustrated with the food and also surprised because as part of the ayahuasca dieta it is actually recommended to cut out things like garlic and onion and also oils, and I was actually tasting all of it in the food here. So against my will I did eat it for the first 2 days, but I had a voice that kept saying like, I don't think this is good, why are you doing this? However, I did feel the need to eat. I was definitely having an appetite. However, yesterday as I purged, the thought that came in very strongly was, you see, you should listen to yourself, you should follow your intuition. And I felt like I was being punished for not doing so as I purged quite intensely and literally all the food came out from yesterday. But after that I felt very calm, and on that note, by the way, I have gone up to the staff here and requested for specific food, and they have accommodated it today very well. So I'm going to be eating super clean from now onwards, nothing added in terms of spices, oils, salts, which is how I like it. So I'm very happy about that. I do want to compliment them on that. And I felt very good after, and at that moment one of the shamans started playing a guitar and singing a Icaros, which is a healing song, working with the medicine, and it was the first time in a long time I was able to cry. And I cried for minutes without holding back like I'm doing now. I'm still holding back right now, but at least I cried yesterday for the first time in years, as long as I can remember, or as far as I can remember. I was able to cry, and in that moment they weren't necessarily tears of sadness, they were more tears of joy, because for a change I felt held. I felt that rather than most of my time, at least the way I feel it, I am there for others, or I feel the desire and need to be there for others. For a moment I was there just being held by the medicine, the shamans, the songs that they were singing. And it felt amazingly beautiful and peaceful. And right after that I pretty much fell asleep, and before I knew it I woke up to the message that they were about to close the ceremony, which ended up being around 2 a.m. So after that I went back to my bed and actually had a very good sleep, where I woke up around 9 a.m. this morning and had a very peaceful day. I did some yoga. I had some food again, thanks to the beautiful staff here that have accommodated my wishes, and just did my floral bath. And now it's all about preparing for ceremony number 2. So we're gonna do some breath work in about half an hour, followed by quiet time, and then the ceremony tonight commences at 9 p.m. We were asked during the sharing circle this morning, which happens every morning after an ayahuasca ceremony, during which we all share our experiences, how much we feel we desire to drink for tonight's ceremony. So yesterday I had 50 ml, which was actually the most out of anyone during yesterday's ceremony. However, I felt it was needed for me in order to cleanse my body, get rid of all that I didn't need. So tonight I am planning to stick to 1 cup, as I feel a lot cleaner right now. However, we'll see what the experience is going to bring. I will check back in again with you. That is some animal right behind me. I don't know what it is, but I'll see you again soon. Hello again. It is the day after my second ayahuasca ceremony, and last night was very different from the first one. I had barely any visualizations or thoughts or messages come in, of which I felt they were trying to tell me something. So the experience felt somewhat a bit flat and maybe even boring, if I can call it like that. However, the collective experience was far from boring, because last night was actually really intense. There was a lot of purging amongst the group, and one of our group members had a very intense experience, loud, thinking or screaming out loud that she thought she was gonna die. So that was pretty full on. We were informed at the very start of the retreat that every now and then that can happen, and essentially the way they explain it is, if a part of you has to die, then every now and then ayahuasca can literally make it feel and appear like you are gonna die, so it can be really frightening. So yeah, I was very aware of what was happening in the room yesterday, and I felt pretty good until I started to lay down, and then I instantly felt that I was likely gonna have to purge again. First it started with me getting like heavy sweats. I sat back up, which made me feel good again, but then I realized ultimately I had to go to bed anyway after the ceremony, and I would have to lay down, so I might as well get it out. So I did lay down again, and I felt it come up, the urge to purge, and I purged 3 times quite intensely. After that I felt relieved, and I was laid back down. I listened to the Icaros of the shamans, the songs, and the ceremony was closed around 3 a.m. Had a really good sleep after that, and then today is all about replenishing, recovering, after the first 2 ceremonies back to back. So this morning had a good breakfast. Then we had the group share. After that I went to the gym. Then we went for a group bushwalk around here, around the site. And I chilled out at the pool after. Now I'm recording this video. Soon enough we're gonna have dinner, followed by a bonfire by the pool. So today is a really calm, relaxed, chill day, which is well needed. Very welcome. Tomorrow is a big day. It is not only the day that it is time for the 3rd ayahuasca ceremony, but tomorrow is also the day that we all have the opportunity to experience another medicine called Sapo or Bufo. Could be both, but essentially it is, could be the same thing. Essentially it is a substance coming from a desert toad that lives in northern Mexico. And that particular toad apparently lives underground for about 9 months of the year and has 8 different glands. And when it comes up, they scrape like a substance of those glands. It's sort of like a caramelized substance, but it's called 5-MeO-DMT, and apparently it is really full on when you take it. So tomorrow we have the opportunity to smoke it. It is also referred to as the God molecule. It is the same so the DMT that is naturally released by the body when we are born and when we die. And that is actually one of the things that appeals me about it, because supposedly after you smoke it within 20 to 30 seconds, often people describe the experience of literally being shot into heaven. So you, opposed to ayahuasca where you can be really present, here you often kind of fully lose control and you're just in a sometimes out of body journey or experience. It can last up to about an hour. So it's yeah, an interesting one. I actually feel quite nervous about it because I have never done anything like that before. So with ayahuasca I'm still very aware, conscious, and you don't always have visualizations. Some people never have visualizations, wherever or however. With the Sapo medicine, apparently it's a very full-on visual journey most of the time. So I am nervous about it. However, I feel comfortable with the staff here, and I feel comfortable with myself, my own ability in order to handle it. So I'm gonna take it easy for the next 24 hours. So that ceremony happens tomorrow at the end of the morning. So I'll likely be back again with an update tomorrow.
Paya 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 kira paya 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 kira choro choro paya kano nasani buwa ketanancha kachoro kano ni bu kano kano yushiba ni bu paya paya kano kuya kainira kuya donki buwa.
Hello friends, it is now Saturday afternoon. A few hours ago most of the group has left the retreat center on their way back to Iquitos. However, I'm here for another week together with 2 other boys, and tomorrow a new group will be arriving for our coming week here. So it is a few days since I recorded my last video message. a lot has happened in the meantime, or I should better say, I've experienced a lot in the meantime. Thursday was time for my Seppo ceremony, or Bufo ceremony. And it was full on. It was really intense. I went into the Seppo ceremony with quite a bit of fear, as it's a very strong medicine, a very strong substance. And it literally gave me the kick in the butt that I needed, and I was wishing to get out of my experience here. So with Bufo or Seppo, you inhale it, so it's being smoked, and then you have to smoke it, hold the smoke in your lungs until you basically feel like passing out, and then you release it. And I remember taking my second inhale. I felt the smoke fill my lungs, and I gradually felt everything close in around me. I felt my lights go out, and I fell back. The next thing I can consciously remember is I caught myself breathing, or better said, gargling breathing, exactly the same way as my dad did shortly before he passed. So during the final day and a half of my dad's life, after he was brought into a deep sleep, as he was asleep, a lot of things came up from his stomach, and as he was breathing, it's basically this sound, almost a sound of like an engine, but just it like a lot of stuff coming up from his throat was kind of bothering him, but he kept breathing, so it wasn't choking him. But I remember becoming conscious again, hearing my dad and feeling like I was my dad. And gratefully, I had a facilitator right next to me who reminded me to breathe. But in that moment, I embodied my dad's body, and I started releasing all the anger and frustration and anything that he was holding on to, or has been holding on to, or was still holding on to. I released it, and I started screaming so loud. I was aware of it. However, it's a bit of not a blur. I was aware of what was happening, but I wasn't aware of the space I was in. And I felt like I was this big eagle, just releasing all that energy. So it was very much in line with my first ayahuasca ceremony, where the main thing that came up for me was to embody the voice of men, especially men in my life that I know, or whom I know were suffering and weren't able to express their anger or frustration or pain, to do it on their behalf. And I really did that, and I released all that energy on behalf of my dad. And shortly after, I remember bending down and grabbing his hand above my head like that, and I was holding my dad's hand for what felt quite a long time. And I reassured him that I was okay. I love him to pieces, I will always do, and we will always be connected. And then I relived some of the beautiful memories that we've had together, especially in recent years, our experiences at DEF CON, and especially the last DEF CON we've celebrated together. It was a beautiful experience, and I felt a very strong connection to the medicine, because it actually allowed me to fully release. And I've struggled with that with ayahuasca, except for a lot of the purging in the first 2 days. But I felt Seppo was definitely my thing, and I felt very relieved and peaceful and happy after. I felt I was able to come to peace with my dad's passing now, and know that he's in a better place than where he was before he passed. So it was incredible. And right there, right then, I decided I was going to do it again the day after. That same evening, I had my third ayahuasca ceremony, which I did fasted. So I didn't eat anything throughout the whole day on Thursday, because my goal was to have a ayahuasca ceremony without purging this time, because I did feel during the first two ceremonies the medicine just didn't agree with me and made me feel sick and throw up a few times, made me feel very uncomfortable. And the first night I did get something out of the ceremony, but the second night I was just mainly throwing up. And I felt it was the food. I mean, all my food came out during the second ceremony. So the third ceremony, Thursday evening, gratefully was actually a lot more peaceful. I didn't vomit or purge whatsoever. I had a very peaceful ceremony. I also drank a little bit less compared to the first two nights or the first two ceremonies, especially after the very intense Seppo ceremony. I'm just looking at my notes here because there's so much I've experienced, so I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So for ayahuasca ceremony number 3, the main thing that came up for me was forgiveness. And this ties back again with everything I experienced prior. So during the Seppo ceremony, one thing I just remembered as well, I've written down, was at one point during the Seppo ceremony, after I embraced with my dad and held his hand, I also hugged my mom and my sister, because I want to make sure that they don't have the feeling or the impression that I'm blaming them for the passing of my dad, or for my dad not being able to express himself freely without being judged. Yes, I do hold anger over the fact that he, in my experience, he wasn't listened to objectively. But I don't hold any blame towards, especially my mom or my sister. I love them to pieces. They mean the world to me, and that was the one thing that came up for me during ayahuasca ceremony number 3, was forgiveness. Forgiveness, and not just for my mom and my sister, but for anyone else in my life that has unknowingly or unwittingly or wittingly hurt me. I forgive them for it. Then on Friday, so yesterday, I decided to do a second Seppo ceremony, and it was as intense as the first one, as good. It was very different. During the first Seppo ceremony, I experienced how powerful our breath is, and that is one sort of theme that has really hit me home, or especially during the Seppo ceremonies, was how important it is to breathe. Because during Seppo, sometimes it can actually be quite easy to forget to breathe. And then gratefully the beautiful, wonderful, helpful facilitators reminded me to keep breathing. And every time I took a breath, it felt like everything opened up, and all the energy flowed, and things came in, things came out. So I've become a lot more aware of the value of breath during the last week. And during Seppo ceremony number 2, as soon as I took the medicine, at first I didn't take enough, and I felt it because I was kind of dozing off and not and staying aware and not aware. Gratefully, the facilitator gave me some more, and then I kind of passed out again, semi-passed out, and a lot of screaming. Once again, I can remember, but the main thing that happened for me was at a certain point, they were playing a song which had very powerful lyrics, because it just hit me straight home. It resonated with me so much. It was exactly what I needed during yesterday's Seppo ceremony, and the lyrics were about broken hearts, but how, in this case, my heart has been broken but that it was meant to be broken, and that it was not broken to hurt me, but that it was broken to show me the other heart was broken too. And once again, forgiveness came in, and I cried, because I felt my broken heart. In fact, it felt like someone was stabbing me with a knife in the back, and I wanted to get rid of the pain, and one of the facilitators actually helped me to get rid of it by holding me and making me open my chest and open my heart. And the next minute I felt a very overpowering flow of love and light enter my body. It came up from below all the way up to my head, where my head just started heating up so much. It actually started hurting, and I screamed that I couldn't handle it anymore, that I wanted to share all of it, or not all of it, I wanted to share whatever I couldn't handle with everyone else. And that's when I realized that I actually needed all that love and light to heal my heart. In that moment, my heart healed, and it actually started expanding. It started feeling 3 times bigger than normal. And the song went on, I felt, for minutes, and I carefully listened to the lyrics. And in that moment, as I was completely empty of tears, and I felt such a great, powerful, loving, good heart that had been repaired, I realized that I've been walking around with a heartbreak. Well, I knew that I've been walking around with heartbreak for roughly 5 years now. Coming from my last and only real long time romantic relationship, where at a certain point my heart got broken. And one of my intentions, or one of the thoughts I had coming into these couple of weeks, was to heal that. And I kind of forgot about it until yesterday's Sapo ceremony, where it finally got healed. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy. And once again, forgiveness came in. So I've actually reached out to Rachel, which is her name, to let her know that my heart is now healed and I forgive her, and that I felt nothing but pure love in that moment. And I've fallen in love with Seppo too, so I'll likely do it again the coming week. I feel it's resonating more with me at this time than ayahuasca. Ayahuasca feels like it's guiding me throughout this whole experience, and it's sort of like the foundation, like the aorta. But Seppo is definitely hitting it home for me. There's just no escape after you take it, and it's just a wild ride. And for me, the very comfortable thing is I can freely release myself, express myself, shout, scream, cry, whereas during the ayahuasca ceremony it is encouraged to keep a lot of it in and sort of be with the process inside a lot. So Seppo is definitely more of my thing. I connected highly with the earth and the energy from the earth during yesterday's Sapo ceremony. At one point I felt like I needed to ground myself, so I stood up. I also kneeled, I put my forehead on the floor, and I felt the top of my head completely open, also like channeling out all that energy into the sky. And sure enough, I could hear the birds responding, and I felt so one with everything, and I felt such a free flow of energy throughout my body. And in that moment I also realized that I am just a pure vessel of love, and not just me. I believe we all are. It was the most beautiful experience, or one of the most beautiful experiences I've had ever, I dare to say. So that was that. And then yesterday's ayahuasca ceremony was beautiful, peaceful. I drank similar amount of ceremony number 3. It was very peaceful, especially after the Sapo ceremony. What came in for me is, during the ayahuasca ceremony, I have to be careful of what energy I let in. So careful what energy I let into my body, because I want to protect this heart. I want to protect it. I want to keep it pure and loving. And I realized that the only one that can actually break it moving forward is me. So that was week 1. Now I've got a full day rest. I mean, Saturday is almost over. It's late afternoon. So I'm gonna hit the gym soon, have a nice relaxing dinner. I mean, there's literally only a couple of people here now, just me and 2 other boys and the staff and the shamans. And then tomorrow a new group will arrive, and then we start all over again with the first ayahuasca ceremony on Monday, another one on Tuesday, and then again Thursday and Friday, with once again the opportunity to do a Sapo ceremony on Thursday and Friday as well. So at this point I don't know when I'm going to record my next video, but you'll see. I'm gonna enjoy my time here in the beautiful rainforest. It is a gorgeous day today with some blue skies and sunshine. It has been raining a little bit here and there the past few days, but it was actually beautiful during Thursday's ayahuasca ceremony. It was raining, and to just hear all the rain, and we even saw thunder and heard thunder during the ceremony, really added something sort of mystic to the ceremony. So it was beautiful. I look forward to the coming week, and I will check in or update you again when I feel like it.
Ma cơ mi ma cơ ma vô y ya don ki vơ wa kim pa ti ni ha kum pa u ya ya ka no vơ wa ma.
Hello again. It is Wednesday, December the 4th. A few days ago, since my last video message, it is rumbling in the sky at the moment. There is a thunderstorm rolling through. We just went for a jungle walk with the group. One of the tour guides spotted a slot in one of the trees, actually climbed into the tree, got it down. We all got to hold the slot for a bit. I don't know how good it was for the slot, but it was a pretty cool experience. So the last few days for me have been really beautiful, and it just keeps getting better and better. I feel. Before I start sharing about my first 2 ayahuasca ceremonies and another experience I did yesterday, I want to share one more thing that came up for me based on what I shared about my experience last week, and that was that I release a lot of energy I felt on behalf of other people. My dad, my uncle, other men in my life that I know have struggled to express their emotions. However, I also realized I'm also included in that. So not only did I release on behalf of other people, I definitely also released a lot of anger, sadness, frustration, out of my own body that I have been holding on to. And on Monday I took part in my 5th ayahuasca ceremony. My intention going into this 2nd week, my main intention is to learn what I need to learn to embody and protect and cultivate this new vessel of love which I have experienced this body is. In addition to that, I also have my main intention for these couple of weeks of finding more peace with death and with dying. So with those intentions I went into the ceremony on Monday, and what came up for me was a feeling of bliss when the ceremony started. It took a few hours before I actually experienced that. So after I drank, I kind of dozed off a little bit, but then after a few hours I noticed this peaceful feeling in between breaths. It was a sense of bliss that I haven't experienced a lot in my life. I got carried away a little bit. I started like stroking myself on my head, and it felt so good. However, that then was followed quite rapidly by a overwhelming sense of guilt that when combined with very strong thoughts and even visions of the 4 young people that have lost their lives attending the DEFCON 1 Australia events over or during the 10 years I have been part of the team, the Q-Dance team in Australia. And I started asking myself the question, like, why do I feel guilty? And there was a lot of anger coming up, a lot of sadness, so much in fact that I requested for myself to be taken out of the room. To which point I grabbed a pillow and started screaming in the pillow very loud, like releasing all my emotions surrounding those tragic deaths. And I basically released for every person until I came to the 4th person. And then I couldn't scream anymore, and instead I felt a sense of love and calmness and peace, and I realized it was time to forgive myself and not blame myself for what had happened, not feel guilt about it, and instead send love to the families of the people that lost their lives, send love to their friends, send love to the people themselves. And that's when I realized that one of the things I really needed to learn that night in order to protect this pure, beautiful heart and this vessel is learn how to forgive myself. And the very strong thought that came in as to how to forgive myself is always ask myself the question, if the actions that I do are coming from whether they are coming from a place of love, care, and wanting to provide joy to others. And if that's the case, there is no reason for me to feel guilty about anything I do. So that was my ayahuasca ceremony on Monday. And then on Tuesday, during the afternoon, I decided to partake in a breathwork experience with one of the facilitators here. His name is Manuel. I felt a very strong connection to him last week as he guided me through my Seppo ceremonies, and yesterday afternoon was just absolutely incredible. For an hour and a half I braided, I surrendered to him helping me to release whatever I needed to release, and it was basically breath work combined with very deep tissue. I wouldn't even call it massage, but he was just finding these pressure points in my body that he pushed to a level where often I was in excruciating pain, but he kept pushing it and I kept allowing it, and it helped me to basically flush out my body of any negative energy I was still holding, or negative emotions. He combined it with the perfect music, so it was like a combination of breath work, pressure point, deep tissue, I don't know how to call it, body work, and sound healing. And when we finished, I literally felt 20 kilos lighter, 20 years younger, if not 38 years younger. I say that because I felt completely reborn. I felt like a baby again. During the experience, I saw lots of light. It felt actually very similar to my first Seppo experience, but then without the Seppo. So in that, I already noticed I was starting to also feel or find a little bit more peace with dying, as I felt like I had died during this hour and a half and I had been reborn again. It took a lot out of me. I went into the second ayahuasca ceremony last night, or the second one of this week, my sixth one here during my stay here, feeling very fatigued, exhausted, tired. And the ayahuasca ceremony last night ended up being my most psychedelic ayahuasca experience I have experienced up to date. And what I mean with psychedelic, it was the one where I had visions that I couldn't switch off. So what happened for me is, as soon as I started my experience, very shortly after, I saw visions of a forest. There's that thunder. I saw visions of a forest with lots of trees and branches, and I saw dead people, dead animals, dead like spirits, some faces, but mostly like sort of vague appearances, but they were all looking at me and they were not alive anymore. So they were like spirits, and I was traveling through the forest. I was kind of dancing through it, and to the point where I realized that ayahuasca was taking me on a ride, like a wild dance or a wild roller coaster ride through this forest. And whether I opened my eyes or closed my eyes, I couldn't escape it. And that's when I realized I can try and surrender, or I can just let it happen and trust the process. And I realized, or I thought, well, I was reborn today. If today I am gonna die too, then so let it be. So I found somewhat of a level of peace with dying yesterday during my ayahuasca ceremony, because there was a voice in me that said, you can just ask for help and get out of this experience. Because part of me felt like I might die, but then my other voice was, nope, trust the process. If you're meant to die, then you will. If you're not meant to die, you're not. A few hours later, I woke up to hearing my own breath, and I realized that I hadn't died and that breath had found my body to create life. And that was followed by a consecutive thought of knowing that one day breath is also going to decide to leave this body and leave this vessel and go somewhere else or to someone else. Now, of course, I'm very grateful I haven't died, because I feel great. I feel like I'm living in a dream. The first few days of this week have been absolutely incredible. I can't wait for what the next couple of days have in store. Tonight we are going to do a Seppo meditation. It's essentially a Seppo ceremony, but with a lighter dose, a micro dose. So a different experience than the full one. And then tomorrow is another opportunity to do a full Seppo ceremony, which I am planning to do as well. So I'm planning to do the meditation tonight as well as the full Seppo tomorrow. And then also 2 more ayahuasca ceremonies. So I will check in again, likely in a few days' time. For now, much love. Hello my friends, today is Thursday, December the 5th. Last night I had another Seppo ceremony, this time with a microdose or so-called microdose of the Bufo medicine, the 5-MeO DMT from the toad. It was a lot more peaceful compared to my previous 2 Seppo ceremonies. It felt more like a floating experience. I still went pretty far or deep, but it was very gentle, and I was very aware of my breath, how my breath was filling my body with oxygen and creating life. The one thing I learned, or the one insight I got from the ceremony, which lasted for about an hour, was that I have the power to disarm negative thoughts or negative energy that come up and change them into positive ones. And I experienced that as I was going through my experience. I always do it with my eyes closed. I was getting some negative or unpleasant thoughts, and I in particular it was thoughts of domestic violence, and I managed to change them into a school playground with laughing children. But I realized afterwards that I have the power to create the narrative for any thoughts I have, and negative thoughts don't serve me. And from now onwards I am committed to only allow and let positivity in my life, and a lot of it starts with my thoughts. And then today I did another Bufo Seppo ceremony, this time the full one, not a microdose, and it was a full-on experience, just like my 2 Seppo ceremonies last week. Very expressive, a lot of release, screaming, I call it beautiful yelling, moving my body, like stamping my feet, like thumping my chest, flying like an eagle, feeling like a lion. I mean, it was a lot more peaceful compared to the 2 Seppo ceremonies last week. There was a lot less, I call it violence, no crying, or barely any crying, a little bit of crying, but just more positively loaded. And that's because I feel I've been cleansing my body for the last 11 days here, and just allowing only light and love to come in. And that was also the main thing I took from today's experience, that as an answer to my intention of learning how to love with this vessel of love, I got the strong call or strong message today during the Seppo ceremony to not allow anything into my life that's not loving. So anything bad energy, toxic energy, whether it's thoughts, conversations, food, anything, just block it out. Don't allow it in. As long as I do that, I can keep filling my body with oxygen and keep pumping out love to others, for myself, as I believe that's the only way to live a long, fulfilling life, to keep the body clean, maintain it as a vessel of pure love and light. And after the ceremony, or after I got back to like the lay down mat where I could relax and drink some water again, I took a few deep breaths, and I noticed at the end of each breath my heart was asking for oxygen again. So I noticed a very strong connection between the heart and the lungs. And it's when I realized one day when my heart is finished, or at least finished playing this game that I'm playing right now, it will no longer need bread. That's when I'm gonna go to what I have experienced during the Sapo ceremonies as an infinite source of light again. I'll pop my head in there and find a new vessel to come back, or stay floating there, I don't know. I will experience that one day. Yeah, I feel happy. I feel I'm learning a lot. I'm experiencing a lot. And I look forward to tonight's ayahuasca ceremony. I'm gonna take a very relatively small dose because I feel at the moment I don't need much at all. And then tomorrow is ayahuasca ceremony number 8, which is the very last one, at least for my retreat this time. And then on Saturday it's time to travel back to the regular world, so to say. So I'm planning to record one last message on Saturday after my upcoming ayahuasca ceremony number 7 and number 8 of this retreat, and give you a final update of my time here before I travel back to Iquitos and then Lima and then Mexico for my dark room retreat next week. So for now, sending you all much love.
Medicina asole, arcana asole, asole da wewa e wewa chama wewa chama. Miyasana mayo so, yodasana mayo so, hosoto weko ima so ayota nada, huisana masoga, wewasana masoga.
Hello my friends, the final day of my ayahuasca retreat here in the Amazon rainforest in Peru. It is Saturday, December the 7th. Since my last video I have done another 2 ayahuasca ceremonies. On Thursday my experience was mainly one of rest and recover. So I slept most of the ceremony. It was nice though. Sleeping while listening or subconsciously listening to the Icaros, the songs of the shamans. Yesterday, my final ayahuasca ceremony, so ceremony number 8 from the last 2 weeks, was the most blissful and enjoyable out of all the ayahuasca ceremonies I've done here as well as prior. It felt like a cherry on top or a reward for the sacrifices I've done or the fears I've faced, and also sort of the darker experiences I've had. Last night was completely the opposite. It was one of pure bliss. Not long after I drank the medicine, I felt myself dozing off and I started to see visions, sort of hydraulic moving claws or branches and flowers, and I had to close my eyes for it to see it. As soon as I opened my eyes, it kind of brought me right back to the room. But as it was kind of gentle, I decided to close my eyes for the entire ceremony, or at least most of it. And at one point I noticed a clicking sound close to my ears and my jaw, and I slowed down my breath, and that actually popped me right into what looked like an enchanted forest. At least that's what I saw. And in there I just floated, and I took very slow deep breaths. I was so peaceful. I saw fairies, or what looked like fairies, angels, castles in the trees. And at one point I saw this lady, like a female fairy or female angel, like spread like sort of sparkle dust or love dust, I think it must have been, and everything was glowing up in orange and red, and I felt getting warm, and it was absolutely beautiful. It wasn't all beautiful though, because I also had two darker experiences. The first one was not too dark. That one was when I popped back into the forest. So I kept popping in and out of this forest. So I would be in the forest for what felt like maybe 20-30 seconds. I'll get back out of it, and I was very aware I was out of it because I was present with everything that happened around me in the room, the sounds, the noises, the singing. But then I would relax again, and I would hear the same ticking sound, and that for me was sort of the clue. Okay, I'm going back in. So I literally popped back in like probably 100 times throughout the night. And at one point I popped back in, and I showed up next to this, what looked like a highway of energy, but there was like all these creatures on the highway with wings flying like really quickly. And I tried to get along with them and travel along. However, when I did, someone or something cut my wings off. And at first, my first response was like, no, my wings are gone, I can't fly. And then I actually relaxed and realized I had nowhere to go. And that it was okay to just be a solid, floating rock. So yeah, that was that. And then when I popped back out of it and went back in, I actually could still hear some footsteps in the room. It's common when drinking ayahuasca that you become very aware of sounds and like hypersensitive. And at one point someone was what sounded like stomping the ground, and I got really angry, and this was me in the forest, and I literally grabbed their head, not actually, but in my visions, I grabbed their head and put their head on the water in like a pond in a forest, and held it on the water as long needed for them to drown. So I actually killed that person. And at first I was like, yeah, but then straight away I felt this corrective energy, or this need to admit that I just done something terrible. I felt a urge to purge. I didn't physically vomit, but I bred out all that bad energy that I felt, or that anger, right in that moment when I heard the footsteps. And I admitted I was wrong. I forgave myself, which has been a big theme for me this week, forgiveness. And I committed to only bringing light and love and positivity into the world, and not feed the darkness, not feed my anger, and be kind to people. So that was that. And what I take away from it, especially from the second week, is I want to bring light to the darkness. Very suitable given the fact that I'm about to go into a dark room for 5 days. But right now I definitely feel I am a vessel of light, a vessel of love. So I'm a lot less nervous and scared about the experience, or for the experience. So I'm about to travel back to Iquitos, leave the retreat center. So that will take about 4 hours before I'm back in Iquitos, the largest city on planet Earth, inaccessible by road. It will be a very different experience again. There's about 500,000 people here, very different to maybe about 50 people that we have here, including all the staff. So about 25 guests and about 25 staff. I definitely have felt like I'm in this beautiful bubble where there's absolutely, or have absolutely been no distractions whatsoever. I haven't connected to anything on the outside world, and as a result I've only been really present with all my thoughts here. I've been fully immersed in this process, and I'm gonna continue that for at least another week and a half, if not 2 weeks, maybe longer, I don't know. It's been an amazing time here. I have found peace with the passing of my dad. I have connected or reconnected with my dad in ways that I didn't foresee were possible. I've also healed my heart from my last and only really serious long-time relationship. I've started to fill my heart back up with love. I've learned how to forgive myself for any bad or evil I've done in my life, especially during my mid-teens, which I'm also writing about in my book. I've also learned how to forgive others, and I am committed to continue to do so. I have experienced and learned the importance of saying no to negative thoughts, negative energy, negative people, anything that's not contributing to a more loving environment, a more loving world, as cliche as it sounds. I have found some more peace with dying. I'm not completely at peace yet. One of the things that's come up for me is the reason why I'm not at peace with it yet is because I feel I still have so much more to share and to express, and that will be part of my integration journey after this, which essentially means my normal life. I am committed to share my thoughts, my experiences, my voice. That is the bell, meaning we're gonna leave soon. I'm committed doing so by whatever form comes in. So at the moment, obviously I'm writing. I am feeling a strong call for speaking, sharing on stage. So we'll see where that goes the coming time. I have to leave. I'm gonna say goodbye to all the beautiful staff here, the shamans. Everyone has been absolutely amazing. They have created a piece of paradise here where a lot of hard work is done. There's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of bravery, and I have experienced, not only for myself but also amongst everyone else, how the darkness can transform to light. So knowing that we're all gonna take this back into the world again makes me very excited. I'm very excited for my time ahead. Right now I'm gonna travel to the other side of the river to the other world again, and then travel to Mexico. I'll be arriving at the retreat center there for my darkroom retreat on Tuesday. I'll share some images of the journey there. I'll share some images of Iquitos, and then I'll check back in again once I have arrived in Mexico. For now, much love to all of you, and see you again very soon.
Desde los tiempos en que mi abuelo soñó que un día yo viviría para cantarles esta canción. Desde los tiempos en que mi abuelo soñó que un día yo moriría para entregarles mi corazón.
Ciao. Thank you. Gracias. Bye.
2, 3, 4.
Cuando la luna como plata se eleva, ilumina las selvas y también las praderas. Viejos lobos de la tribu cantaron al espíritu del fuego.
Hola amigos, I am in Mexico. I have arrived at the retreat center 24 hours ago, so I've had time to get settled into the space, into my dark room. Also time to get accustomed to the elevation, because the retreat center is located 2200 meters above sea level. That means there is less oxygen available compared to sea level. The retreat center is located about 10 minutes from the city of San Cristobal de las Casas, which is about 1,000 kilometers southwest from Cancun and about 150 kilometers from the border of Guatemala. So it is 4 p.m. right now, Wednesday, December the 11th, and in exactly 1 hour from now I will turn the light off, and the light will remain off for the coming 120 hours, or to be precise, exactly 5 days. And then I'm gonna turn the light back on, or I'm gonna open the door of the room in exactly 5 days from now on Monday at 5 p.m. Before I turn the light off, I'm gonna give you a impression of the space and of the room. And then I'll let you be a witness of the moment that I'm going to turn the light off. So that is the dark room with a beautiful view of the forest here in the valley. However, I won't be able to see much of it, at least not for the next 5 days. On the outside here is my food delivery box. So every day I get breakfast and dinner delivered through that box. I'll show you the inside once we get into the room. Welcome to my dark room crib. Right there is where the magic happens. The bed. I suspect I'll be sleeping or spending plenty of time in there the coming 5 days. That's my buddy. I call him Tiger. He travels with me everywhere. That's a heating mat right there, so I can plug that in, provide some extra heat. I've got plenty of different layers of blankets and duvets. It's expected to get down to about 4 degrees Celsius most of the nights, the coming nights, so pretty cold. And also given the fact that this entire room has got brick walls, it's gonna be pretty cool in here. There is my chill out area, or meditation or exercise area. It serves different purposes. Got a yoga mat there, some pillows, some cushions. I suspect I'll be spending most time either right there in the bed or right there next to it. The bathroom's right here. Sink, toilet and shower. And then in the corner of the room there is a water container. It's got 20 liters of water in it. Should be plenty for the next 5 days. Got another heater right there. So it's pretty tiny. It's I suspect about 3 by 4 meters, this entire space. There is my wardrobe. I have tried to put some order to it because once it's fully dark, it's useful to remember where everything is. So I got my warm stuff on the top, pants underneath, and then some possible shorts if I want to do some workouts, or t-shirts, and then underwear and socks. There is my dining area, chair and table. This is the dining box or meal box from the inside. So it is fully light proof. As soon as the meals get delivered, they'll knock on the outside and then I can collect my meal from the inside. Up the top I've put some pieces of paper, and basically every time I've had a meal I'm gonna take one of them and hand them back in with my empty plate or empty meal box. That way basically I can count how many that are left, so I know what day it is or what time of the day it is, because there is a chance I will lose complete sense of time. And that's it, my friends. So everything is fully light proof. At the moment I still got some lights on. This one is the only light bulb that will actually stay in the room. The light in the bathroom at the moment, that is my personal headlamp that's hanging off the ceiling. As soon as the light goes off, so that will happen at 5 p.m. So shortly from now I will flick that switch and then the light goes off. Now in case I do feel the urge to turn the light on at any time during the next 5 days, I can always walk over here and either turn that switch back on or simply open the door. Now, obviously that is not my goal. My goal is to be in here in complete darkness for the next 5 days, as that is what I signed up for, and I trust that that is going to give me exactly the experience that I need right now. I am looking forward to the experience. I'm gonna prepare myself. I've got about half an hour left, so I'm gonna do some meditating. I'm gonna set my intentions for the next 5 days, and then I'll be back shortly when I'm gonna turn off the light together with you. I'll see you soon. Hello my friends, it is 5 p.m. It is time to turn the light off. I forgot to mention in my previous video, there's also a system right here. By flicking that switch, I can let fresh air into the room from the outside, and there's another one in the bathroom that's actually taking air out. So I am recommended or encouraged to turn that system on twice a day. Even if I forget and don't, I'm not gonna suffocate. Apparently there's still enough air coming into the room for me to survive and be able to breathe. So it is time. I have no idea what to expect for the next 5 days. I feel less anxious and less scared compared to 2 weeks ago. My time in the Amazon has really helped me to feel more grounded, and I learn a lot about focusing on my breath and enjoying my breath, and how my breath is always there, and as long as my breath is there, I will live. So I'm definitely going to be using all the tools and experiences from the last 2 weeks in the Amazon in order to get the most out of this experience. My intention is to really see whatever comes up and be open to whatever does come up, for that to happen, and receive it with gratitude and peace. If that means it's going to be very unpleasant, hey, so be it. My time in the Amazon has also not always been pleasant. It's definitely been a difficult experience at times as well. So yeah, I'm nervous, a little scared, excited, all at the same time. But it is time. So right here is the button. And when I press it, my experience is going to start. And then the first light I'm going to see is again Monday afternoon. Now, maybe I'm going to see some light inside. That is definitely one of my intentions, to bring light to the dark. But we'll see what happens. I'll see you on the other side.
Here and now, before earth and sky, we stand. We feel the blessing of your infinite love in our bones. in our blood, in our breath, in our hearts. We open our eyes to see beyond what we have seen before. We open our ears to hear what we could not hear before. Beyond limitation, beyond the beyond. We feel a new story emerging from ourselves and rippling out into our lucid bodies, as waves of love remind us of who we really are. Dissolve us into what we have always meant to be. And the layers between us and who we are meant to be fade away. And suddenly we realize we are all that we dream we could be. To see without eyes, to walk without feet, and to fly without wings.
Jeff, it's time.
Hello my friends, I am back in the light again. I'm also back at sea level as I've left the mountains and retreat center in exchange for some time in a beach town called Playa del Carmen. So I'm still in Mexico, but in a very different environment compared to the past week at the retreat center. First of all, a lot more light here, but especially different temperatures because my time in the dark room ended up being a lot cooler than I wanted and anticipated. Not just because of the cold temperatures at nighttime, but also because I failed to plug in one of the heaters I was provided with. I unplugged the heater prior to turning the light off, and as soon as the light got turned off, or I turned the light off, I tried to plug it back in and I actually failed to do so. I tried for about an hour, but I just couldn't make it work. In hindsight, I realized that the wall plug I was trying to plug it into was placed on a slight angle, and one of the pins of the plug of the heater could only fit into a particular point. Anyway, I ended up giving up after trying for about an hour. My solution became to dress myself nice and warm, wearing different layers of warm clothing and spending a lot of time under the blankets because the bed was definitely the warmest spot of the room, because I also had a heating blanket sort of located next to the bed. The coldest part of the room, however, was the bathroom. It was absolutely freezing in there, so I have to admit, I refused to take my clothes off and go and take a shower. So I didn't shower for 5 days. Rest assured, I've taken a shower again and I feel refreshed. I've had some time to reflect on the entire experience, so I'll share with you my experience in chronological order, as well as the main takeaways from it. Day one was relatively easy. When I say easy, after I failed to plug in the second heater, I just went straight to bed and I slept what I feel like for probably 70 to 80% of the first 24 hours. I dreamt a lot as well, and most of the dreams were actually not pleasant. They were all related to the same theme, and that was about me failing the experience. I was dreaming about people coming into the room, opening the door and letting light in. And every time I would get so upset, I'm like, no, you can't let light in, now I'm failing. I also dreamt about me using my phone to make notes, and then as soon as I put my phone down, I realized I'd sabotaged the experience because obviously there's light coming from my phone as well. Gratefully, they were all just dreams, and I didn't fail the experience. I did sleep a lot though, even though most of the dreams were quite unpleasant. But I felt very rested coming into day two. Day two, however, the first real challenge for me came up, which was a headache that started to arise from an increasing influx of thoughts. Because I was awake a lot more during day two, I just started noticing so many thoughts rushing through my head, and they just kept coming in, and there were mostly thoughts about memories of my life, and there was no order to it. Just random things kept coming in, and I started feeling my head heating up, a headache starting to arise towards the end of the day. And I was thinking to myself, if I can't get this under control, if I can't manage this, these next 3 days are going to be absolutely terrible. So I ended up creating a solution for it, gratefully, and my solution became to create, well, you can call it imaginary, it could be a real opening on the top of my head, and I call it a vacuum cleaning vortex, which I use to let all the thoughts that kept coming in, just let them be sucked out and thrown back into the universe. That trick ended up helping me a lot to quieten my mind down. So I ended up being able to fall asleep again and have a relatively peaceful second night. Day three, however, my next challenge arose. About halfway through the day, I realized I was about halfway through the experience, and I actually started counting down till the end. Also because I started feeling really hungry. Even though I was provided 2 meals a day, I estimate in total maybe I got about 800 to 1,000 calories a day with those meals, whereas usually I eat about 3 to 3,500 calories a day. I didn't have any snacks in the room either. So I started struggling because I started feeling really hungry. And I basically started counting down till the end when I was able to buy food again and, satisfy my appetite. But as soon as I started counting down till the end, I realized, oh man, I shouldn't do this because time just seemed to go slower and slower and slower and slower. That's when I thought of a similar experience that I've had competing in Ironman triathlons. The first few I did, I was so focused on the finish line that the race itself wasn't really enjoyable. I don't even remember a lot of it. The only thing I really remember from those races is getting to the finish line, crossing that finish line, experiencing that major sort of dopamine and endorphin release. However, after I broke my foot a few years ago, and then the first Ironman I did after that, I felt such a great and increased level of gratitude for me being able to compete in those races, that I was actually a lot more present with the race while I was doing it. So I was very grateful while I was swimming in the ocean. I was very grateful while I was riding the bike, and especially grateful being able to run. And I was less focused on getting to the finish line. And I realized, and I experienced afterwards, like those races have become so much more enjoyable for me because of that. And I use the same philosophy and strategy for my time in the darkroom, especially throughout day 3, where once I realized I'm not gonna quit, I might as well enjoy it here and really be grateful for the experience. It helped me to calm down and I would say enjoy it at times, even though it was still quite uncomfortable, especially because of the cold and the fact there's no light, and you add in all these other factors. But that wasn't my biggest challenge. So day 4, my next challenge actually arose. And day 4 for me was a day of questioning why am I doing this? Because I feel I was still waiting for a big sort of breakthrough or revelation to come in that I was hoping for to happen. Because during my 2 weeks in the Amazon, there were set moments during which we would have ceremonies, during which, I mean, it's never a guarantee, but I was expecting something to happen during a lot of those ceremonies. Whereas with the dark room, there weren't any set moments during which I knew, okay, now something might happen or I might have a breakthrough. It was just 5 days in the dark and let's see what happens. And I feel on day 4, I was maybe getting a little bit impatient, or maybe not realizing I was already having like these breakthroughs and helpful experiences. And I started questioning, why am I doing this? And when I really fell into it, I realized I'm doing this because I want to conquer my fears and I don't want to live in fear ever again. So the first time I heard about the concept of a darkroom retreat was about half a year ago. And as soon as I heard about it, the first response and the first thought that came up was like, well, I'm scared of the dark, so I should do it. And I'm scared of the dark because as a teenager, my first time sleeping somewhere else without my parents nearby was at a camp with Boy Scouts. I was in a big sleeping hall with all the other scouts, and during the middle of the night I woke up, it was pitch black and I freaked out. I ran towards the door, the exit, to try and find some light, and my parents ended up being called. My dad ended up staying with me for the remainder of the camp to calm me down. I ended up feeling like a failure because of it, because I was the only one with his dad there. Because hey, I was afraid of the dark. And that started my fear of the dark. Now, I had another experience a few years ago where I was invited to participate in a sweat lodge ceremony. So basically a very small confined space that is then heated up and completely closed off, pitch black. As soon as it got closed and I was in the dark, I think it triggered my experience as a scout, and I had the similar response. I basically like pushed people aside, stormed outside, found a way to the exit or found a way out of the sweat lodge, which ruined the experience for basically everyone else there. But I panicked so much, I was like hyperventilating, and ever since I've had this intense fear of pitch black spaces. On day 4 of the darkroom retreat, I thought to myself, hey, I haven't been afraid at all yet whatsoever. And I realized that over time during my life, I've gradually made a shift in my mindset where in my younger years, I used to feel like a victim, and I used to feel that suffering would choose me. And over time, I've changed that narrative to now me choosing the suffering over the suffering choosing me. When I realized that, I became more grateful for the experience. That being said though, day 5, the last 24 hours, were the most unpleasant or the most difficult 24 hours of the experience, because during my final night, I couldn't fall asleep. I felt so restless. My legs were shaking. I couldn't fall asleep. I was feeling this overload of energy in my body that I couldn't get rid of. I started working out as a result. So I started doing push-ups and bodyweight squats in the room, and I laid back down in bed, but I couldn't fall back asleep. At that moment, for a brief moment, I felt like a victim again. I'm thinking to myself, I'm suffering. But then I actually thought of a book I read a few years ago. The book is titled Left to Tell, which is written by a woman from Rwanda who spent 3 months in a bathroom with 7 other women during the genocide in Rwanda in 1994 in order to survive. So every day she was fearing for her life, fearing to be slaughtered. And she stayed 3 months in that bathroom and actually survived and wrote a book about it. I read the book after I traveled to Rwanda a few years ago, and combined with hearing various stories throughout my time in Rwanda about the genocide, I realized during that final night in the dark room that even though I was suffering, or I felt like I was suffering, it's nothing in comparison to what other people have gone through or are currently going through. So it was a humbling experience. And as a result, I started feeling very grateful for life, and especially for my breath. And I created another trick in addition to the vacuum cleaning vortex in order to put myself to sleep, and I call it grateful breathing. So every breath I took, I felt really grateful for the fact that I was able to take another breath, because as soon as I was breathing out, I thought to myself, well, it's no guarantee that I'm able to breathe in again. So every time I was breathing in, I was like, oh, I am. And I just felt so grateful. So grateful breathing has become a part of my life already, as well as the vacuum cleaning vortex. So those are two major takeaways from my experience that I've already been implementing over the last few days. Now I have to say though, I was very relieved when the staff member of the retreat center finally knocked on the door at the end of day 5 and basically said, Jeff, it's time. As soon as I heard that, I felt like, okay, I've completed it. I was very grateful. As soon as I opened the door and opened my eyes, it was really overwhelming. I felt like I was being reborn. It felt like I was seeing everything for the first time again. I looked into the forest in front of the dark room, and as soon as I opened my eyes, I noticed it was actually quite overwhelming for my brain, for my head. I've had a headache ever since. The headache has eased off and it's getting better, and I feel it's probably because my brain is processing just all these impulses again after not having any impulses for 5 days. So my main takeaways from the experience: first of all, no reason for me to be afraid of the dark anymore. I haven't been afraid of the dark at any point throughout the 5 days. I also realized darkness has nothing to do with dying. I've created 2 major helpful tricks, grateful breathing as well as the vacuum cleaning vortex, to calm my mind down and fall asleep. So I've already implemented them, and I feel convinced I'm going to implement them for the rest of my life. So it's been a roller coaster of an experience, and I'm very, very grateful that I did it. I did realize after though, because of my unease and feeling of discomfort the last day, that I still have a lot more work to do. Besides the feeling of discomfort, especially in my legs, I also noticed my jaw got really tense. So even though I've completed 5 days in the dark, I feel I'm only getting started, and there is a lot more work for me to do. Recapping my experience from the past 3 weeks, I have participated in 8 ayahuasca ceremonies, 4 bufo ceremonies. I spent 5 days in the dark room, and I've done a one-on-one breathwork session. For me, the most eye-opening, healing, and therefore transformative experiences have been my ceremonies working with the bufo medicine, which is the 5-MeO-DMT, which is secreted from the Sonoran desert toad. Prior to traveling to the Amazon Retreat Center, I had already pre-booked 1 bufo ceremony, as it was an optional add-on on top of the already included 8 ayahuasca ceremonies. And because of my first experience with bufo, it was such a literally mind-blowing experience. I ended up doing another 3. Now, they were far from enjoyable. So to say that they were transformative doesn't mean that they were actually enjoyable while I was in it. In fact, I've had a wide variety and mix of pleasant experiences, unpleasant experiences, very uncomfortable experiences. I've done a lot of shouting, crying. To summarize it, from my experience, a healing retreat is often far from comfortable and pleasant. In fact, same for me the last couple of weeks. Most of the time while I was in a ceremony or going through an experience, it was actually very uncomfortable and unpleasant. That actually made me think of some of the comments I sometimes receive from people in my surrounding whenever I share about my plans on participating in a upcoming healing retreat. Sometimes I get the comments of people asking, why am I doing it? Why am I not going on a rather enjoyable, pleasant holiday? Why am I putting myself through it? And what's come up for me during the last few days is Yes, I know often these healing experiences are far from comfortable or enjoyable while we're in it. Whenever I come out of it, I actually feel like the rest of the year, and in fact future years, if not the rest of my life or this life, is actually, that's the holiday. It makes the rest of the time for me feel like a joyful holiday. That is one of the main reasons why I will keep working with medicines, keep going on healing retreats, because I feel I'm far from done. During the last few weeks, I feel like I have found peace with the passing of my father. I love you dearly, Papa. Especially during my first Bufo ceremony, that was the main thing that came up for me. So it's been very healing, it's been beautiful, even though it was very uncomfortable while I was in it. I'm very grateful I've had that experience. I've also healed my heart from my failed romantic relationship, the only long-term one I've had in my life. During the retreat, I kind of forgot. That was one of my intentions or goals. In fact, I have been walking around with a broken heart for the last few years, but Bufo ceremony number 2 for me did the trick. And during that ceremony, even though I cried a lot afterwards and during, I felt my heart was healing and literally started expanding, and very grateful for that experience. Now, in order to protect this healed heart, expanded heart, vessel of love, some of the other topics or realizations for me that have come in over the last few weeks. First of all, forgiveness. I need to forgive myself for having caused pain and hurt to people in my life, especially during my mid-teens. I also need to forgive others for causing hurt and pain to me, not just in the past, but also moving forward. I do believe that at the root of people causing hurt or pain or harm to others is their own pain. And the reason why I believe this, because I've been both on the receiving end as well as the giving end of it. So forgiveness, very important and present topic for me that's come in. Another one is breath, the value of breath, the value of breathing. The first time I started experiencing this was during my first Bufo ceremony, where taking in really deep breaths, first of all, is essential to stay alive. But most importantly, when you take deep breaths during the Bufo ceremony, it just puts the foot on the gas and you just go. So for me, breath became the main tool to get the most out of my Bufo ceremony experiences. And then during my time in the dark, I realized how much of a gift it is that I get to take a new breath in every time. So grateful breathing has been a helpful tool for me. Breath means life. As long as I can keep breathing in, it means I can stay alive. So I'm very grateful for my breath. I'm a lot more present with it now. I've also realized the importance now to maintain this healed, more pure vessel or body of love and light. For me, it's important to keep out negative energy, say no to negative energy. With that said, I do realize that very likely there's always going to be darkness, let's call it, in the world and even around me. However, as cliche as it sounds, I do believe the only way to fight darkness is with light. So I'm committed to that. Now, did these past 3 weeks alleviate or make my fear of dying disappear, which was one of my other main intentions of these 3 weeks? I don't have a clear answer to that. So it's actually both a yes and a no. The no for me is no, I don't want to die yet. I'm not ready to die. I feel I have a lot more to share. I want to share my story, the lessons I have learned and will continue to learn. I want to continue to heal myself. And with that said, by healing myself, my main goal is also to help others heal who can recognize themselves in whatever I share along the way. Ultimately, my goal remains to be able to die peacefully and in acceptance. So that's where my yes comes in. I have alleviated somewhat of my fear of dying, because I have experienced during the past 3 weeks that it is possible, or I believe it is possible, to die peacefully. I do believe the only way, or at least in my experience, the way to be able to die peacefully is to go back, or at least as close as possible, to the pure state, or a similar pure state that I was born into this world into, or born with. And I now realize, or I have realized over the last 7 years especially, that I lost track of that state very early on in life. When I started doing my first healing retreat experience 7 years ago, I realized that I have 20 plus years to make up for, or basically to heal from. Right now, after the past 3 weeks, I feel more inspired and motivated than ever to continue to be a humble student to different healing practices, retreats, tools, and also medicine in order to continue to heal myself. I think about a quote that one of the facilitators at the retreat center in the Amazon shared with me during our one-on-one breathwork session together. His name is Manuel. At the end of the session, he shared with me that the ultimate goal is to become the medicine. And as soon as he shared it with me, I felt inspired and also aspired to actually reach that state of being. So yeah, I am committed to ultimately become the medicine. Now, with that said, I do want to express and acknowledge my gratitude to everyone that has been part of my healing experience over the last 3 weeks, that has played a part of it, has contributed to it. A lot of beautiful, caring, kind, and especially talented people. I want to express my gratitude also to everyone else that has come up for me during the past 3 weeks. So that's what I'm going to close this film with. Now, with that said, I increasingly realize that yes, humans can do a lot of harm to each other, but more importantly, I also believe and now realize more and more that we need each other to heal. So with that said, if you feel a desire to open up a conversation based on anything I share, please feel free to reach out to me. I've made this video as a video diary for myself, but the main purpose of it, and also the reason why I decided to make this film, is for it to be here as a possible catalyst for anyone else healing as well.
I've been closed in the dark all my life, held it in but not anymore. Got 2 feet on the floor. This is it, I'm stronger than ever before. Pardon my imposition, but this is my conviction. I need to get this off my mind. I gotta be me, gotta be I, gotta be who I know I am inside. Can finally breathe, taking it in, look at me flying. It's always been there, it just took me a minute to find it. If I were to be anybody else, I'd just be hiding who I am, who I am. Looking back on a little boy, never gave him a chance to ever be more. I didn't love him, but I'm gonna love him right now and forever. It's time to push open the door. Pardon my imposition, but this is my